As soon as they were set free, many outraged Japanese Americans looked to the government for redress of the material loss they had suffered in the internment process. In 1948, President Truman responded to the situation by signing into law an evacuation claims bill that allowed Japanese Americans to make claims for damage to or loss of real and personal property. The process for reviewing the internees' cases was severely constrained, however. By 1950, only 210 claims had been cleared. Although the legal process was later expedited, or hurried, in the end, the victims of internment who filed claims received an average compensation of only $340 per person. For decades, Japanese American activist groups urged the U.S. government to take further action on behalf of the internees. Okay, we're going to start reading Source 1, Walter Lippmann article from his syndicated column Today and Tomorrow, the fifth column on the coast. It was printed in the New York Tribune on February 12, 1942. A note, the term fifth column refers to people who engage in espionage or sabotage within their own country. So espionage is like spying on your country, and sabotage is trying to undermine government policy illegally. San Francisco, the enemy alien problem on the Pacific coast, or much more accurately, the fifth column problem, is very serious and it is very special. What makes it so serious and so special is that the Pacific coast is in imminent danger of a combined attack from within and from without. I'm going to highlight this line. The danger is not, as it would be in the inland centers or perhaps even for the present on the Atlantic coast, from sabotage alone. The peculiar danger of the Pacific coast is in a Japanese raid accompanied by enemy action inside American territory. So I'm just going to write a note to myself that, according to Lippmann, and I'm going to abbreviate Japanese Americans to J-A, we're plotting with the Japanese. The combination can be very formidable indeed, for while the striking power of Japan from the sea and air might not itself be overwhelming at any time, at any one point just now, Japan could strike a blow which might do irreparable damage if it were accompanied by the kind of organized sabotage to which this part of the country is especially vulnerable. This is a sober statement of the situation, in fact a report, based not on speculation, but on what is known to have taken place and to be taking place in this area of the war. Our context said that it was based on speculation, so I want to highlight this, that it says it was not based on speculation, but what has been known to have taken place and being taken place. So they're arguing that this is a fact. It is a fact that the Japanese Navy has been reconnoitering, which basically means that that country is performing secret missions in the United States to find out reconnaissance or information about the enemy. The Pacific coast more or less continually and for a considerable length of time testing and feeling out the American defenses. It is a fact that communication takes place between the enemy at sea and enemy agents on land. These are facts which we shall ignore or minimize at our peril. It is also a fact that since the outbreak of the Japanese War, there has been no important sabotage on the Pacific coast. From what we know about Hawaii and about the fifth column in Europe, this is not, as some have liked to think, a sign that there is nothing to be feared. It is a sign that the blow is well organized and that it is held back until it can be struck with maximum effect. In preparing to repel the attack, the Army and Navy have all the responsibility, but they are facing it with one hand tied down in Washington. I am sure I understand fully the unwillingness of Washington to adopt a policy of mass evacuation and mass internment of all those who are technically enemy aliens. I'm going to highlight technically enemy aliens. And I'm going to write a note because we learned that they were rounding up citizens too. So if they're citizens, they're legal citizens of America, are they technically enemy aliens? Don't we associate the word alien with being not a legal citizen? There is the assumption that if the rights of a citizen are abridged anywhere, they have been abridged everywhere. Abridged just meaning shortened. You don't get all the rights you're supposed to. Forget for a moment all about enemy aliens, dual citizenship, naturalized citizens, native citizens of enemy alien percentage, and consider a warship in San Francisco Harbor, an airplane plant in Los Angeles, a general's headquarters at Oshkosh, and an admiral's at Podunk. Then think of the lineal descent, if there happened to be such a person, of George Washington, the father of his country, and consider what happens to Mr. Washington if he would like to visit the warship, or take a walk in the airplane plant, or to drop in and photograph the general and the admiral in their quarters. He is stopped by the sentry. He has to prove who he is. He has to prove that he has a good reason for doing what he wishes to do. He has to register, sign papers, and wear an identification button. Then, perhaps, if he proves his case, he is escorted by an armed guard while he does his errand, and until he has been checked out of his place and his papers and his button have been returned. Have Mr. Washington's constitutional rights been abridged? Has he been denied the dignity of the human person? Has his loyalty been impugned? I'm going to highlight this line. So Lippmann is arguing that internment is not taking away rights. Whether or not you agree with this is going to be the focus of your final task during your break. Okay, source 2 is by Lieutenant General J.L. DeWitt, report on relocating Japanese Americans to Secretary of War Henry Stimson. Final report, Japanese evacuation from the West Coast, 1942. It's an excerpt on June 5th, 1943. In the war in which we are now engaged, racial affinities are not severed by migration. The Japanese race is an enemy race, and while many second and third generation Japanese born on United States soil, possessed of United States citizenship, have become Americanized, the racial strains are undiluted. I'm going to highlight, have been Americanized, the racial strains are undiluted. I'm going to make a note that DeWitt is arguing that they may be American, but they're loyal to Japan. Oops, sorry guys. There we go. To conclude otherwise is to expect that children born of white parents on Japanese soil sever all racial affinity and become loyal Japanese subjects, ready to fight and, if necessary, to die for Japan in a war against the nation of their parents. That Japan is allied with Germany and Italy in this struggle is no ground for assuming that any Japanese, barred from assimilation by convention as he is, assimilation just meaning that you become fully American, though born and raised in the United States, will not turn against this nation when the final test of loyalty comes. It therefore follows that along the vital Pacific coast, over 112,000 potential enemies of Japanese extraction are at large today. There are indications that these are organized and ready for concerted action at a favorable opportunity. Again, just like Lippmann, DeWitt is arguing that there actually is proof, even though we've read before that there really wasn't an investigation. These people weren't put on trial officially, and there was no actual reasonable suspicion for any of these people. The very fact that no sabotage has taken place to date is a disturbing and confirming indication that such action will be taking place.